What's going on, guys? It's your boy Burrow77 coming to you with Brandi Mac from Twitter. Brandi has been a longtime friend of the program. I linked up with her way back when I first started on gambling Twitter and Discord. We linked up over in Mooney Gang talking college hoops, and we have stayed in touch ever since. She's a massive Auburn fan and an Auburn grad. So I'm just going to toss it to her and let her introduce herself.
Yeah, what's up, guys? I'm Brandie, also known as Brandi Mac on Twitter. And yeah, like you said, I'm a massive Auburn fan. I worked in athletics when I was a student there. And when I moved to Nashville, Tennessee, where I live now, they legalized sports betting. The first really sport I got into betting-wise was college basketball because it's the sport I kept up with the most. It was the easiest for me to understand and kind of just took off from there. So yeah, I'm a big college basketball hoops junkie and kind of have been for my whole life. So yeah, that's basically it about me.
Yeah, and one of my favorite things I picked up from, I think it was either you or Jeff. You don't always have to say it, but when you pick a dog, if you're like, yo, if I like the dog and I'm taking the points, chances are I'm throwing that money line sprinkle on there because I don't take dogs unless I think they can win outright. And that philosophy has served me well, and it's something I enjoy. I like people and I like talking to gamblers who can identify money line underdogs and have the confidence to take them.
Yeah, and honestly, that's been huge this season. You're right. It was probably both me and Jeff because we kind of used a similar strategy. But in a season where we've had a record number of upsets happen to teams ranked in the AP poll or just in general top 25 teams from advanced analytics, we've had an insane amount of upsets this season, especially when those teams go on the road. That's been a big season for me and people who use that strategy.
So let's talk about your best bets for the round of 64 action you have coming up. I'll just kind of shut up and let you take it away, and then I'll throw mine up there, and we'll kind of go back and forth on them.
Yeah. So first one is New Mexico. Talked about this a lot, but they're really my Cinderella team, and I just think that they are much more well-rounded than Clemson is, and they have more talent when it comes to people in college basketball talent, not necessarily NBA level talent, but college basketball talent. New Mexico, -2. I love that team a lot, and I think that they're going to beat the shit out of Clemson. Washington State money line. I mean, this is really a play on just the matchup again. This team just, like I said, like they have kind of gone on a run that nobody expected them to during the regular season, and they beat teams that they weren't supposed to beat. And I just don't think that they're getting the respect from the books. They're getting the respect from people in their brackets. This is a good team that has what it takes to at least win the first game of the season. And I like the price here. They're +2, I think is what I opened at, +1.5 now. I just straight up took their money line because I think that they're just going to win straight up, and I'd rather get a better price than picking +1.5 when I think that they're going to win outright. So I'd rather get it at -102 instead of -115 or whatever. So that's why I picked money line instead of their spread.
Yeah, and like we talked about earlier, 1.5 doesn't really move the needle for me. You know, like getting the +1.5. Like I know I talked about paying to drop it, but like I completely agree with you. I think the value is on the money line instead of the points. But we'll come around there. So yeah, keep on rolling. You're on a roll here.
Yeah, and then the next one, Charleston +9.5. Like we talked about earlier, I think Alabama is in a ripe spot for being upset. These two teams are actually really similar from a metric standpoint. Both have very good offenses and both have very bad defenses. And Alabama is not playing their best brand of basketball at all right now. And that has a little bit to do with some injuries. So Rylan Griffin has been injured and Latrell Wrightsell has been injured. And those are two guys that have been either playing starting minutes or have been starting throughout the season. Wrightsell got re-injured in the game against Florida where they got beat by a lot of points in the SEC tournament. And before the SEC tournament, they almost lost at home to Arkansas, who has been horrible in the SEC this year. They were at home too. That game went into overtime, and they're lucky it went into overtime because they actually should have lost that game. And so I think Alabama is just not hot at the right time, and they're not playing good basketball. And this is going to be a shootout with the metrics between both of these teams. And at some point, when you have such a good offense and such a bad defense, sometimes your good offense starts impeding on that bad defense even more. And I think that's what's happening right now with Alabama. And so I really like this long line for Charleston. I haven't bet the money line yet. There might be a chance that I do, but I love this spot for Charleston. And then St. Mary's, I went back and forth on this so many times. I really like the St. Mary's team. Before the season, I actually had them in my preseason, Final Four, whatever. I think that they're playing their best brand of basketball right now. They just won their conference tournament against Gonzaga, and they're just hot at the right time. And there was actually a little bit of a question with the start of the season that they had.
I disrespected them a lot at the beginning of the season. I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of videos out there of me shit talking St. Mary's, but they put it together.
Yeah, so I was definitely feeling very dumb at the beginning of the season when I was like, oh yeah, St. Mary's is gonna be my one in my preseason Final Four, which preseason Final Four is dumb anyways. But there was some question marks about whether they would actually end up making the tournament or not, and now they're in the tournament. I think that they got a good draw, and it sucks that it's against Grand Canyon because I love this Grand Canyon team. It's an all right matchup for St. Mary's, but I really think the difference here is that Grand Canyon's strength of schedule it's just not good. Yeah. It's really just not good. And I really wanted them to get matched up with a 5 seed that was a little bit I wanted them to get matched up with Wisconsin. I would have picked Grand Canyon over that's what I wanted. When I saw who the seeds were, I was like, if Grand Canyon plays Wisconsin, I'm picking Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon's playing St. Mary's. And I just think that the tempo that St. Mary's runs at, the length that St. Mary's has, the fact that they're hot at the right time, I'm comfortable laying 5.5 points here when the price is good. The value, in my opinion, is good because I think that St. Mary's goes out there and wins by 10 to 12. So I really like the St. Mary's team. I think that they're going to go far. And I think a lot of it just has to do with Grand Canyon and the way that they've played. And then Nebraska money line here. So you'll see this with a lot of 8 and 9 seeds. It's essentially a pick'em line, either -1.5 or +1.5. Nebraska, I believe, is +1.5 here. That might be -1.5 actually. But we just finished talking about Texas A&M and Nebraska, and I think I just like this Nebraska team, and I'm willing to put money down on them. And I am so pro fading the Big Ten usually in the tournament. I just think that Nebraska has what it takes to beat Texas A&M from a magical standpoint. They're hotter than them. They're more consistent, and I have a lot more faith in Nebraska's offense than I do Texas A&M's offense. Neither are great, and so I'm going with the one that I think is better.
I just do want to mention real quick. I know you bet this already. If you shop around, you can still find Nebraska to pick them. It just depends on what state and what sports books you have access to. But the difference between -118 and -110, it's not going to kill you.
Right. Yeah, if you can shop around and get these at better prices, highly recommend doing that. We'll put a link down here actually for a tool that's free to use. That's in the beta testing version of it for that, but it's called Odds View, and it kind of helps you see all of the live lines, EVs, ARB opportunities, but also just the best book to place these bets on too, so you can get the best price at the best number.
Smooth plug, like a pro.
Yeah. And then the last one is Oakland plus 13.5. This is really a flyer here, and this is me taking a chance on a team that I think played a better kind of schedule than most would look at when they think about Oakland. And they actually have played some teams Oakland has just played teams too close that are too good for me not to take a line that's 13.5 in an NCAA tournament game. This is insanely long. They're not playing against the 1 seed. They're playing against a Kentucky who's overseeded to begin with. And I think they can do it. So earlier in the season, for just for people who don't know, Oakland played Illinois and they only lost by 11. 3 seed, same line as Kentucky. So they played them pretty close. And they also played other teams really close, like Drake, who's a tournament team, as well as Michigan State, who's a tournament team. They got blown out by Dave, and we won't talk about that one. But they played some like really good teams, like relatively close. And I think that 13.5 is just too long to pass up when this is not Oakland playing a UConn or a Houston or UNC or an Arizona. They're playing a Kentucky team that lost to UNCW this season at home. So I like Oakland plus 13.5 for the value there.
Yeah, and credit where credit's due. I mean, they beat Xavier in Xavier's building, which regardless of what you think of Xavier, that's still a big East team. Like you said, they played Drake tough. They played Ohio State. They played Illinois tough. They played Toledo tough, who, look, they choked in the MAC tournament, but Toledo plays an extremely tough brand of basketball where they go to the foul line like 35 times a game. They live in the paint, and they absolutely beat teams down. And this Oakland team lost to them by 1. And I think the Horizon League doesn't get enough credit for how good a basketball goes on there. Like, I thought Youngstown State had a very good season. A little disappointing for them. They probably should have finished a little bit better. Cleveland State played really tough. This Green Bay team going from last and winning like no games last year to getting a new head coach in and really buying into the system. The Horizon League is a really good stepping stone league, much like the MAC. It plays competitive basketball. And again, it's stuff that you might not have paid attention to 5 or 10 years ago. But now that all these games are on ESPN Plus, it's just so easy to tune in and watch Horizon League basketball. So yeah, you can kind of see where more of these longer number upsets start to come from. So I like your card here. I'll go through mine real quick because I'm definitely with you on New Mexico -2, Washington State +2. I found that out there. It's still hanging around at -110 if you want the +2. I'm with you though. I think that I certainly wouldn't take 1.5. I do like the 2 a little bit just for an insurance on the push. But the money line at a plus number is really where I'm going with this. The +2 is just up there for people who really only like to bet spreads and totals. Creighton -12 here. Again, I think the Kalkbrenner mismatch, like, good job, good for Akron for getting in, but you have absolutely nobody who can go pound for pound with Kalkbrenner. So Creighton, please don't fall in love with the outside shot here. Feed your big man, who there's nobody stopping him in the post. Kalkbrenner should go off for 30 points and 15 rebounds at a minimum in that game versus Akron. So if you're allowed to bet player props in your state, take a big red pen and circle Kalkbrenner's name because he should feast against this Akron team that's got absolutely nobody who can go up with him. I'm going to take South Carolina on the money line here. I know you think they're overinflated. I know there's a lot of love for this Ducks team. I struggle. I know the tournament's about getting hot at the right time and having the storyline, I like Oregon's coach. I like what they have going on, but I do think this South Carolina team puts it together. And I think the value's there at a pick'em on the money line against a Ducks team that, just like I said, I don't back a lot of teams that struggle as much as they do from the free throw line. If you shoot under 70% from the stripe, chances are there's not going to be a place where I take you in many tournament games unless you're playing another team that is sub 250 from the stripe. We disagree a little bit here. I like Nevada on the money line. I think that John Lucas is an absolute stud. Again, that's a kid who knocks him down at over 90% from the free throw line. So putting John Lucas at the free throw line late in game situations, especially if Nevada's in the bonus, is a surefire way to lose the game. And that's why everybody looks to double John Lucas on the inbounds so that he doesn't get the ball, forces the ball to Blackshear, who is about a 65 to sub 65% free throw shooter, but tends to kind of come through for Nevada in the clutch. And I'm +2. Again, it depends on where you shop around. I think this Nevada team just struggles a ton outside of their gym, but you are the second person and who picked up on the same key I did, which is Tamiyaga, the Japanese international. I like that storyline. That's why mine says leans. I haven't plunked any money down on these lines yet, just because I know that I am going to do another show again tomorrow. And the last one is JMU, because Scotty are frauds and they can't shoot outside their building anywhere. I don't care if it's on a neutral floor. I don't care if it's away. And sometimes they even struggle to shoot in their own building. I just think this Scotty team, and it's not like I think JMU's as good as JMU was hyped up to be after that Michigan State win, losing twice to App State in the regular season was interesting. Though what I will say is I can't remember if I picked this up from you or Jeff again, but all the way back in the day, one of the strongest takeaways I've had from talking college ball with you is do not sleep on how hard it is to beat a team 3 times in a season, especially in college ball. You do not see teams 3 times in a season unless you're playing them in a conference tournament or you're playing them in the NCAA tournament. And when you have that much tape and you've played a team twice home and away, the third game, it almost always seems that the team who lost the first 2 tends to find a way to get a greasy W in that game.
Yep, absolutely.
And then I know we're running a little long here, so I'm going to keep it moving. We're going to go right into Brandie's best bets and futures positions, because I do have my futures positions in pocket, and I love talking about these numbers to make the round of 16, to make the round of 8. Who do we think has it in them to make a run? Possible buyout spots, because I'm big when I play futures. I'm big on the buyout opportunities. I know we had a little conversation on Twitter about Florida, because I thought Florida was extremely undervalued at 16-1. That didn't mean I thought that they were going to win the tournament against Auburn. But I loved the fact that I got basically 5-1 on my money buying out of Florida being able to win 2 games in a row.
Right. So UNC, Auburn, and Houston are my 3 national championship futures. You'll notice they're all 3 from different regions. That was not intentional. It was truly just a play on who I think is going to win. So UNC, I think that they just have almost like a cakewalk to a Final Four possibly. And also they've won a national championship in Phoenix before, which is where the Final Four is. And the ACC always has, I think in the last 30 out of 38, let me pull it up and see just to make sure I get that right. But the ACC just in general puts a ton of teams into the Final Four. And so this one really is more of a play on them to make it to the Final Four. But I think depending upon who comes out of the bracket ahead of them, above them, this would be one that I would probably ride to the end unless UConn comes out of the bracket above them. So if UConn comes out with the bracket above them, then I would say probably cash out or hedge if you can. But I like UNC to win it all here. And then also have Auburn to win it all out of that top bracket here. And this is a little biased since I'm an Auburn fan, but this is one of the best teams I've seen in my lifetime. I've seen a Final Four run before, but UNC, Auburn, Houston all qualify for, you guys, I'm sure people have probably thrown out the Ken Palm offensive and defensive stuff and all of that. So as people know, and since Ken Palm's inception, a team has to have a top 39 offensive efficiency and top 22 defensive efficiency. People usually round up or down to 40 and 25. But of that, 95.8% of teams had a top 19 offensive efficiency, and 95.8 had a top 18 defensive efficiency. There's also some other metrics like adjusted, just a general adjusted efficiency. There's teams on the cusp, and there's also teams of the actual like what's calculating. So that's just the rank, but what's actually calculating. So the 112 plus offensive efficiency. or better for offense or a 94 or less defensive efficiency. And so UNC, Houston, and Auburn are three teams that kind of fall into all of these, like, they qualify. Like, these are teams that actually qualify, that can make it to or qualify to win a national championship. So one, I'm not going to bet on somebody to win the national championship if they aren't in a certain offensive and defensive efficiency ranking in KenPom. That's not everybody's style, but I'll just go ahead and tell you that is my style. And if you do use KenPom, just be aware all of KenPom's predictions and projections are predictive analytics, and it doesn't include injury. I'm sure many people have heard all the stats about the overall number 1 seed. We talked about this earlier, a team not repeating since 2007 Florida did. And I just think that, one, I'm biased towards my own team. But two, like, Auburn has depth. Like, we have everything to win it all. And the last time Auburn went on a Final Four run, they had to go through Kansas, UNC, and Kentucky. So we're not scared. This team isn't scared. They're ready. Our team is said out loud on camera on ESPN, we're not losing another game. So I am choosing to have confidence in my team the same way that the players and the coaches and the staff are. So that's why I bet on Auburn. I'm an Auburn fan, so I get it if you don't want to tail that one. Totally understand. Houston to win it all plus 690. So there is a boost on FanDuel for a futures bet. And I chose Houston because they were the shortest line out of the other three. And so I'd rather just get a better price on those because I think that the value on Auburn and UNC is already good. And so I took Houston on FanDuel, took it with the boost, wouldn't take it unboosted. Even taking it on the boost is a little tough when you get a non-4-digit number on a futures bet like this. You really don't want to do that. But I really like this Houston team. Think that their matchup is good in the bracket like we talked about, and think that they're poised to go on a run. And Kelvin Sampson is an experienced coach, and he has experienced guards, and just his team in general is just experienced. So I like Houston to win all. So those are my three. I have in my official bracket Houston beating Auburn in the national championship game, and I have on the other part of the bracket I have Creighton. So those are my four Final Four teams. And I think this is important too when you're thinking about March and betting on actual games once your brackets have been busted, because some of them are going to lose. You can't win them all, obviously, when you're betting on 3 national champions. So I think it's important when you're betting on single games after the first round to not let your bracket dictate how you bet moving forward. So if a team that you think is going to win gets matched up with a different team than what you had in your bracket, just forget the bracket when you're betting. Look at the numbers and look at the matchup, and then go from there. And just try not to be biased towards what your bracket had. You want to win your bracket pools. You already paid money to be in those. You're technically already betting if you did pay to be in those bracket pools. So if you want to bet on an individual game after the first round, completely throw away your bracket when you're looking at everything else past the first round, in my opinion. And just the risk aspect of it too. If you have any of these futures for a team to make it to a certain round or to win it all, and you also want to keep betting on them, just think about the risk of that. You know, you already have a future. If you already have a futures ticket out there, do you really want to take, Houston minus? Right. Do you really want to lay points on Houston to be an 8 or 9 seed when you already have, a futures bet on them? Probably not. Let's maybe look at a different game there. So we can talk about the other aspect of bets that I have, which are my round of 16 bets, Sweet 16 bets, and my one Elite 8 bet. So I have St. Mary's to make the round of 16 bet plus money. I like them to get that win over that 12 seed. I know it's a little sketchy there with 5 and 12 seeds, but I like them to get that win. And after they get that win, they're playing either Charleston or Alabama, and their defense is just way too good for either of those teams to beat them. And I think that they will make it to the Sweet 16, and it's plus money. And so it's really a value play here. And if they can get through Grand Canyon, I think that whoever they play next is going to be an easier matchup than their first round matchup. So really like the value there for St. Mary's at plus 168. Then New Mexico, we've already talked about this a lot. We both love this New Mexico team, and an 11 seed. I know taking an 11 seed to make the Sweet 16 kind of sounds crazy, but it's happened. I got the stat. I know what this stat is, because this is one thing I was like, there's an 11 seed out there that's going to win my heart. And An 11 seed has made the Sweet 16 in 7 of the past 9 tournaments. And we've seen multiple 11 seeds make it to the second weekend in 5 of the past 12 tournaments. So last year was like the first time we hadn't seen an 11 seed in the tournament. And it was also the first time we hadn't seen a 5 seed be upset by 12 seed since year 4. So the last time that there was consecutive Sweet 16s without an 11 seed was 15 years ago. So this would have to be essentially similar to like a repeat national champion. It's going to have to be a 15 plus year streak broken for an 11 seed not to make it. My absolute favorite 11 seed matchup, draw, everything is New Mexico. So at plus 245, I feel like you can't shy away from that when you look at that compared to the other 11 seeds out there. So it's really a play on the seed that they have, but also the matchup and the team that they have too, because their analytical metrics from a KenPom perspective are actually like pretty decent. When you like see the name and the conference that they're in, you'd be pretty surprised, but they're kind of on the cusp of like being qualified in the KenPom like metrical rankings to win the national championship. They have an offensive efficiency of 41 and a defensive efficiency of 23. We just pulled off those numbers of 39 and 22 for national champions. So I really like New Mexico. Texas to make the Sweet 16 at plus 310. I think we're going to get Rick Barnes playing his old team matchup here. And I think Texas has been tested time and time again this season in the Big 12 with the conference tournament that they've had. They've had to overcome an injury with duces, and I feel like he's been playing good. And I like Abemus, which is the guard that they have on their team. And I think that if Tennessee and Texas end up matching up with each other, Texas is one team that has the length that can kind of match Adu on the inside. And they're just a pretty efficient team on the offensive side. And when Tennessee plays teams that have a decent or a pulse defense, but also like are actually pretty good on the offensive side, they struggle and their offense just goes stagnant. And this is more of a play on Texas to beat Tennessee in the round of 32 if we get to that point. And I think that the value there at plus 310 to beat Tennessee, it's not going to be that when the line comes out. So that's really what that's a play on there. So I really like the Sweet 16 bets. If you really like a team to get to the Sweet 16, I suggest you take a peek at that teams to make the Sweet 16 and see if there's any value there for teams that you think can make a run. Because I think that there's some good numbers out there for some teams. There's some bad numbers. I wouldn't take anything at minus money out there. But if you can find a team that you really like and you feel like the price is going to be better for them to make the Sweet 16 than it would be to win outright against if they have a round of 32 matchup, I'd say take a peek at that. The last one I have is Creighton to make the Elite 8 at plus 205. Again, another plus money play here, but I think it doesn't matter who they match up against, whether it's Oregon, whether it's South Carolina, whether it's Tennessee, Texas, the play-in team. I don't really care who they match up against because all of those teams, they're taller than them. They have better guard play than all of them. I love this price here. And if Creighton makes it to the Sweet 16, like I think they're going to, then they're probably going to be favored. And there's a chance to potentially hedge this bet if you want to. Or there's a chance to middle it when the time comes if they do make the Sweet 16. And if they do, they're likely going to be favored unless they play Tennessee maybe. But even then, I think they're still going to be favored and you have a chance to possibly middle. So getting that at plus money, I think I just really like the price for it.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. I do think that we talked about how it sets up nice for Creighton. One of the things I think or at least I forgot to mention is Creighton's one of the best teams in the country at not putting their opponents at the free throw line. They defend super vertically. They do not foul. So even if you are a lights out shooting team at the free throw line, like a lot of teams in the Big East are, which is why I think the Big East is so competitive, these guys do not put you at the line to go get freebies. So I like that. Here are my futures bets. UNC to win it all. I'm not going to hammer on that. We already talked about it. Feel like it's an easy layup line for them with the draw, but I did buy this back in early February when they lost a couple games in a row. Thought I could buy them on a cheap number. Didn't happen that way. They ended up losing a couple more games where I could have gotten a better price. And now that they've gotten the 1 seed and that everybody's seen how easy their bracket is, they're back to 17-1. So I didn't lose anything, but I didn't gain anything by trying to grab that position. in the middle of the season. Again, I did the same thing here with UConn. This is actually a full play for me. Early February, I just said, look, I know how hard it is to win back-to-back, but this team's just flat out playing the best basketball in the country, or at least that's what I said in early February. And I still think it's relatively true now. If you don't think they're playing the best basketball in the country, they're playing top. I would be hard pressed to find somebody giving me a logical argument keeping them out of the top 3 best college basketball teams in the country. U of I to make the round of 16 at -120. I know you said you wouldn't personally lay juice on that, and I'm kind of with you here. I haven't made this an official play yet, but this is a spot I'm looking to use a boost on, and a boost that hopefully I'm not limited by that sportsbook to like $10 on the boost. Because this, I do think, is a very good value position. We're not going to spend any more time talking about New Mexico because we've murdered that. New Mexico is criminally underrated as 11th seed here. And like I said, Florida, again, runner-up in the SEC tournament. Think they have a soft draw against a Marquette team who has some injury problems, and I don't know. And again, like you said, Florida puts in the effort to rebound. Like they know that every rebound is the difference between winning and losing games, because in college basketball, it really is. And these dudes they all have motors, and they have no quit when it comes to rebounding. And that's Marquette's biggest weakness, is these guys do not rebound at all. Plus Shaka Smart, I know he had the run at VCU, but Shaka Smart is terrible in end-of-game situations. He does not care about the number at all because he blows covers all the time by just having terrible end-of-the-game situations. This is plus 250 on FanDuel, but I had a nice MGM boost that did let me get closed down. Let me get a full half unit down. So if I can get a full half unit down at for $25 for Florida to make the round of 16 at plus 305, not only do I think that's a great price, and I think they're competitive with Marquette, I think that if they make it to play Marquette, and then the injury news happens, you're going to get a great buyout position here. And I know that's not everybody's thing, but that, like, for me, especially when I did the conference tournament preview videos, when we got to the major conferences, I picked 6 major conferences, and 3 of them got to a buyout position, all with 40%. The lowest one I got was 40% return on investment, 150% return on investment, and then almost 5-to-1 return on investment on Florida playing Auburn. It's just one of those things that if you do it if you get antsy, or if you're like, well, I took the position, I like to ride, if you're a ride or die person, I strongly encourage you, split your unit, put a half unit so that you can cash out or hedge and then have something to ride if you like risk. Because there's so much value here in these numbers for people just to win 2 games. So if you like them to win 2 games and you think you're getting a better number than, like we said, the money line in the second game, that's where we find our value, and that's where we go. Real quick,
I'm joining you on that. I'm joining you on that Florida bet if Colorado loses the first 4 game. Okay.
Okay. Awesome. I love it. Brandie is great. She sent me her, we'll call it the bracket of integrity. This is her official bracket that she listed out. So I'll throw that up there, and we'll do kind of the post-show wrap here. I really like how far you have Creighton going. I do think they're super dangerous. Like we said, I think UNC, if they play Zona, or I would love to see them play the Lobos. I would really love to see New Mexico stick it to Zona, because I think that would be a great matchup and a great story there. I really think it's interesting that you have Wazoo, whose shirt I'm rocking, by the way. Shout out to RIP to one of the greatest coaches of all time, Mike Leach. I always have a soft spot for Wazoo because of how much fun that air raid offense in football was to watch. And I thought that, like, you know, unfortunately he did pass suddenly, but that Gardner Minshew team that he had up there, it was just absolutely electric to watch, and I couldn't get enough of it. And that's why I own this Wazoo shirt, and that's why I'm wearing it on the show here, because I do like Wazoo. I find it interesting that you have them beating U of I. I think that would be a great matchup if they end up playing U of I. I think that would make for some really exciting basketball. But anyway, Brandie, before we get out of here, I do want to say thank you. I want to give you one more opportunity. Drop your plug one more time, because I do think you got a great website, up and coming website that is very useful for gamblers.
Yeah. We'll drop the link in the bio, but some good friends of mine started this company called OddsView, and essentially you can look at, like we were talking about, real-time odds across all sports books, but you can also look at real-time EV opportunities, real-time ARB opportunities, all of it, and it's in beta testing, so it's free. And if you follow the link once we drop it in there, that benefits me as well. Who doesn't like using free tools to help you bet and get the best prices possible? So really, really cool. The people who designed it kind of used a stock market experience to design it. So really cool up and coming thing that we'll drop in the bio here. And then follow me on Twitter if you ever have any questions. If you're looking at a number and you want somebody else to have eyes on it, just shoot me a message. I'll be a little busy this weekend because I'll be in Spokane, catching some games there, watching UAB upset San Diego State and Auburn punch a Sweet 16 ticket. But I'll try to answer if you guys ever message me on Twitter.
Yeah, and I will say, I gotta give you mad props because your chirp game is immaculate too. So if you smoke it, Brandie, you better come correct, because she knows what she's talking about and she will chirp back at you. Thank you all so much thank you for being on here. It was so great reconnecting, because it has been a minute since we've been able to talk. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Keep an eye out. We will do one more show tomorrow afternoon with my boy Josh Lander, whose YouTube page this will be on, so you don't need to worry about that. Follow Brandie on Twitter. You can Soccer International break, which is great for me, so that I have the entire week free to just be obsessed with college basketball and not have to worry about my BetUS La Liga show this week on Thursday, which would cut into my tournament time. So couldn't be more ideal for that. You guys know the rest of this gist. I'm not going to sit here and plug everything. You can find all the links right down here. But until next time, that's Talking Hoops with Oaks and Brandie Mac from Twitter. Deuces, we're out.